Hello and welcome back to the Cricket Nerds. Today you've got me and James. Oh look, Benji's here. Hi Ben.
Hey! Should we start again?
Hello, welcome back to the Cricket Nerds. Today we are reviewing the two test matches, the two brilliant test matches which we have witnessed this last week. We've had India versus Australia and England versus New Zealand. So should we start with India versus Australia, the one that went a bit quicker? And it was well, it wasn't all Australia, but Australia were in it until they decided to do some really interesting tactics and sweep everything against the Indian spinners.
Who was
But
it?
yeah, it was a
Who was it that we said during the IPL that a team? I think it was Sunrisers last year. That's what I liken Australia of this tour and this game to. Like they look like they're doing well, and then they lose. Like
yeah,
it was like Sunrisers Hyderabad last year in the IPL. They look like they're doing okay, and they just throw it out the window. And as Zach said, they just do stupid things like sweeping Jadeja so that you can get 7 for 42.
yeah,
Unthinkable.
and losing 4 wickets for 0 runs at one point.
yeah. There's that meme going around about the guy who is happy watching his team, then he goes to the bathroom and he comes back and he's really
Oh,
angry.
the Pakistani guy. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
I love that meme, and there's been lots of those about Australia doing just that. But yeah, it was dreadful, like really bad from Australia, to the point where it was like watching England playing Australia in Australia in the Ashes just gone.
Mm.
Like it was that embarrassing, and it kind of shows how much India just can't. It's just the way they play in India. They don't let anyone have a sniff really, and as soon as you think you do, it's false hope because someone
Yeah,
like Ashwin or Jadeja just says no with
yeah.
either bat or ball.
To say that it started the day 61 for one. Like
Mm.
they were actually in a really quite good position, and then yeah, almost out of nowhere, as soon as Ashwin got the big breakthroughs, and I've seen quite a few kind of suggestions that Ashwin should be the man of the match because he got the biggest wickets. But
Mm.
as soon as the breakthrough happened, they were sweeping the worst shots. Like it was, um, I know that like the grade cricketers are laughing because all the Aussie purists are gonna be like, oh, they were playing across the line, and it was bizarre. I mean, when there is variable bounce and they're also against some of the best spinners in the world that are getting lateral turn, the only thing you can really do is be solid in defense, play the line that you can see that covers the stumps, or you get to the pitch of the ball and score. Because if you get to the pitch of the ball and play it straight, realistically, the up, down, sideways movement isn't going to matter as much. But Australia decided to go for this sweeping tactic. And even when it was obviously not working, they persisted with it. And that was really, really bizarre.
Mm.
Yeah,
I do want to highlight a couple of positives though from Australia because overall they did better in this test. Like it's really been overshadowed by their second innings batting. Yeah, I agree, but they did have they looked a bit more like they could actually compete in this second test match. I think heroes, I want to say Khawaja and Hanscom in the first innings. I think both of them batted really well. And I think they, I mean, India, let's not forget, were behind by 1 run after the first innings. So if
big one run.
it was a big 1 run. If it wasn't for Akshar and Ashwin's partnership, they could have been behind 30 or 40 runs coming into the second innings.
Mm.
And also in the second innings, I think there was shades of positive around Travid Head's approach. And by the way, I enjoyed him opening the batting. I feel a bit bad for David Warner having concussion and a broken arm. Not that bad, but a little bit bad for David Warner for having a concussion and a broken arm. And then Marnus looked okay as well. That was his. He looked more confident this time. So I think Australia have got shades of hope They just need again to sort out this mix that they seem to not quite have got. And from the bowling perspective, I think Nathan Lyon was a little bit of a good point for them as well. What did you guys think of India's performance in this Test match? Because it wasn't as complete as in their first one.
No, it definitely wasn't. And I think part of the thing for India is their team is doing well in India with the bowlers of Ashwin and Jadeja, and their batting is doing well with the bowlers in Ashwin and Jadeja. India's batting hasn't been doing well for a long period of time in Test cricket, other than I would say Rohit Sharma, who has done really well at the top of the order consistently for the last 2 or 3 years at least. Players like Pujara, Kohli, Shreyas Iyer, I know he's just come into the team, KL Rahul, they aren't giving the impact that they need to give. They're not giving the sorts of uncle/daddy hundreds that we expect from these Indian players, right? And they're not doing it consistently enough. And so many complaints from the Indian fans are that they're being rescued by Jadeja and Ashwin over and over again.
And Axar.
And Axar Patel
Axar
as well.
Patel looks like he should be a top order batter.
Australia could have been so far ahead of this game had it not been for Axar Patel and Ashwin's performance. And even if, let's say, Axar and Ashwin didn't score many runs and Australia had that lead of 100 that they were looking at like getting, they were going to be setting India 200 and something in the final innings, which on that pitch would not have been easy, which shows how valuable that partnership was. So although India won the Test match, I think it was more Australia lost the Test match because India is struggling and they need to sort out their batting, I reckon.
I've got a stat for you boys.
I think you're absolutely right.
I've got a stat. So who do you think is, well, Rohit Sharma, top scorer in this series so far with 183 runs in 3 innings. But Axar Patel is second with 158 runs. So Axar has been better than the rest of India's top order. He's averaging in this series in 2 innings 79 with the bat.
Get him in at 3.
Like Rohit's only averaging 61 and he scored an Uncle 100. So like,
I saw a really good tweet from Wasim Jaffer who said there are 3 reasons why Australia are losing to India. Our bowlers are out bowling their bowlers. Our batters are out batting their batters. And our bowlers are out batting their batters.
Yeah, it is true.
I would actually dispute that, and I would say that Australia's batters are out batting India's batters, with the exception of Rohit Sharma. If you look at the other top scorers, it's then Marnus Labuschagne and Peter Handscomb as the highest run scorers. So Rohit and Axar, Rohit's obviously the best top scorer; he's up there number 1. But Marnus and Handscomb are, 3rd and 4th in highest run scorers so far in this innings. I mean, their averages aren't quite as good. Marnus at 29 and Handscomb at 36. But yeah, it's interesting. The stats back up what we're saying though.
I would simplify Wasim's a bit more because you're right. Australia's bowlers are being out bowled by the Indian bowlers, and that's literally it. Because the batting from both teams, other than as you've said, the Indian bowlers are batting better than Australia's bowlers, and it's true because the batting this series hasn't been great, and you don't want to see that. You want to see an even contest between bat and ball, and part of it is shot selection, not being able to adapt to these spinners in these spinning conditions, and part of it is top class bowling. Like we can't get away from the fact that Jadeja and Ashwin in India are so dangerous, and any spinner who comes to India leaps at the opportunity to bowl in these conditions, like Nathan Lyon, very experienced. We've seen how well Todd Murphy's done. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I know India scored 400 in the first Test. It takes a lot to do that. But still, there's a few things missing there. But we'll see what they say in the comments. Because everyone's putting their best Indian players in.
Yeah,
Yeah, go for it.
Speaking of comments, I just want to highlight a couple of comments that I've really liked, and I think this is the right time to do it. One was from Laksha Ranjan, who said, "I watch your every video, but I don't comment in every video. Thank you. That you're the real one. If that describes you, if you maybe if you've never commented, but you're a big fan, we really do appreciate all the support." And look who's watching. He congratulated us on the 2K mark, which we also need to thank everybody else for, because it is the second 1,000 has been a lot easier to get than the first 1,000, has to say. Yeah, we really do appreciate the support.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this.
I was just going to say, I think our new target is 5,000 by the end of the IPL.
Yeah,
let's get it.
Let's go for it. So like and subscribe, please. It really does help us out. Now, talking about India's batters, because I do want to highlight KL Rahul specifically, because he has not been in good form. The guy has played a lot of test matches now, only averages about 33, 34. And there are very good Indian batters waiting in the wings, particularly Shubman Gill, who could be a like-for-like replacement. So my question is, can India really afford to keep him in? Now, I think he's lost the vice captaincy now. It's not looking good for him. There's been, tons of kind of press on KL Rahul's slump in form and general just inability to get India off to a good start. So I want to get your opinions, hard and fast. Should KL Rahul be dropped for the next test?
Well, I don't think it's all on KL Rahul, but I think a large part of it is that top of the order, someone to bat with Rohit Sharma. And yeah, I think Shubman Gill should be in the side. I think Sarfaraz Khan should be in the side. If someone's batting that well in Indian conditions, and the Indian spinners who play domestic cricket and don't end up playing test cricket are better than the spinners that England can produce. So I'm sure they're pretty decent. So yeah, get them in, see what they can do. There's no harm in it, is there? And that's what we've said in the past. India don't take those risks. And they can afford to take the risk, because at the moment it's Ashwin and Jadeja versus Australia. So why not?
Before we move on to talk about England versus New Zealand, I want to shout out Michael Goff, the umpire, for having a sublime performance. I'm just counting. Out of 10 reviews taken against Michael Goff, only 2 reviews were successful in overturning his decision.
That's really good, actually.
10 reviews.
He's a great umpire.
As opposed to Nitin Menon, who was corrected 3 out of 7 times. Goes back to my point about Nitin Menon and Michael Goff.
Oh,
there we go.
No, I'm not having a bad word said against Nitin Menon, all right? The bloke, I think he is my favourite. Only after, what is his name? K. Anantha Padmanabhan. he is my second. So Nitin Menon is my second favourite umpire. But there we go.
Sorry.
Right, Zach, I believe we have a cheeky cricket nerds question about India, Australia.
Yeah, we'll call it the half-time break. It's not really about
the strategic timeout.
Yeah. It's not about India versus Australia necessarily. Well, it's kind of to do with that, because we've had a lot of comments about how Australia aren't able to play in these Indian pitches. Can any team come and play in these Indian pitches? And they're kind of the common C&Qs that we're getting. But one of the ones which kind of segues us on to England versus New Zealand is, can England beat India in India with their Bazball approach? Which is a very interesting question, because at the moment it seems like no one can beat India in India. But do we think Bazball, whilst we've still got our Indian viewers watching that video, do we think that Bazball can beat India in India?
I think it can beat them in a match.
Whether in a series. Yeah. When is the next India?
But I would not write that off.
When's the next England tour of India?
No idea.
We'll see, because I don't know. Let's talk about Bazball now, because the performance in Bazball has been incredible.
England taught India in early 2024 for a 5-match test series.
We'll see if Bazball still exists by then, but it seems to be going pretty well. And that brings us a perfect segue to talk about England versus New Zealand, the first test in Mount Maunganui. I mean, 267 runs, that's a thrashing, isn't it, boys?
I think it's England's biggest victory over New Zealand in terms of runs. So yeah, it was a big victory in which England have had some. I don't know what it is, but it seems to be every game. England seem to have these star performances from every single player.
Yeah.
No one seems to be left out. Everyone's contributing to the win, and I think that's part of the team ethos that we've got at the moment. Is that whether you're a bowler, a batter, all rounder, you are contributing in whatever way you can to deliver the victory against New Zealand. I do have a few question marks, which I'm sure we'll come on to later. But James, let's start with this person. What did you think of man of the match, Harry Brook?
Oh, the guy's an absolute superstar. His straight back six, which he played, I think it was in the first innings, I want to say. That was the most like Kevin Peterson like shot that I think I've seen him play, and he really does remind me of Kevin Peterson.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Harry Brook, at the moment, I think he's actually been handled really well, because he's taken that number 5 slot after Johnny Bairstow unfortunately broke his leg, and he's been kind of protected in that way. But I think the media hasn't overhyped him. I think they've hyped him just enough. But realistically, I think he's the next big thing for English cricket. He's the guy to take the mantle over from Root, from Stokes. Stokes, managed to finally topple Brendan McCullum off the most sixes hit in Test cricket. And he said, like, Brookie will probably do it in 20 games. So
yeah, easy.
He is a bit of a superstar at the moment. I'm really excited to see his career going forward. Just what a player. Every time, even because after the Pakistan series, that obviously they were really favourable conditions and he was playing really well. But even in these more difficult conditions, the guy is unstoppable. So I'm a big fan of Harry Brook.
I mean, in 5 matches, he's averaging 77, 78 at a strike rate of 96. Like, that's just phenomenal in Test matches for numbers. Yeah, it's really impressive. But he's doing obviously better abroad than at home. Like, he didn't do particularly well in the one game he played against South Africa. But yeah, I'm excited to see how he does in this year's Ashes. But like, just going to your point, Zach, about this, how it's selfless play, because I think both Ben Duckett and Harry Brook left hundreds out there on day one, because they were playing this approach of, right, it doesn't matter about our individual scores. We just want to score at 5.5 and over. And like, the fact that they're going out there and they're getting 325 and 50 odd overs is incredible. And both Duckett and Brook could have scored hundreds. But because they were batting in that way, that aggressive way, keeping the strike rate up, it meant that they both, in effect, threw their wickets away. And it's that selfless mentality that actually it's not about me, it's about the team, that all of the team are embodying. And you see it even in like interviews. It's always, we've got it done for the team. It's always for the team. It's never thinking about them individually.
Yeah, and batting that quickly meant that England didn't have to bat under the lights, which is where it was the most difficult. And we could bowl under the lights with 3 of the best swing bowlers in the world, and really cause New Zealand some grief. You're absolutely
exactly
right.
It's the same with the bowlers too. Like, in the first innings, Robinson took a 4-fer, and in the second innings, Broad and Anderson both took 4. Like, it's just the way that everything gets shared out. I mean, one of them could have been kept on longer with a chance to get 5. Like, Broad could have bowled more on the morning of day 4, but didn't, because they were doing the thing for the team. Anderson was having a purple patch. But yeah, there were just some absolute top quality star moments in that game. Can one of you just summarize Stuart Broad's at the end of day 3. That spell, like it was a classic Broad spell, wasn't it?
Yeah, we talked about it in our review of
Yeah.
day 3, but he just got his tail up. He just didn't seem like he could be stopped in that moment. As soon as he gets a wicket that goes through the gate or just nips away at the last moment and takes the edge, he just puts the ball in the perfect area, ball after ball after ball, and really challenges the batsman to the point where I can't see a more dangerous looking bowler in the world. There are times when Broad looks a bit tame and he's struggling to find his length, but when he hits that length, he is as good as anyone. And he's been doing it for years now, and it is awesome to watch. But for me, Ollie Robinson is the key to England's success over the last year and also moving forward, because I know that Stuart Broad and James Anderson are still going and doing very well and still doing well, but in the longevity of England's bowling, Ollie Robinson will be the leader of the attack. And right now, he is averaging less than 20 with the ball, which is no mean feat. His strike rate's phenomenal. And he and Harry Brook are kind of having a bit of a competition for man of the matches. In the last 5 games England have played, it's either been Ollie Robinson or Harry Brook who's been getting man of the match. So to see those two relatively new players to the England setup being the ones who are causing England's victories and making the biggest impacts, that's really encouraging for England moving forward. So yeah, it's all good from those two. James, did you ever? I heard you had a C&Q on Stuart Broad.
You heard correctly. So PD, a legend of the game, asked, "Do you think Broad will get into the 600 club?" Now I want to expand that, and I want to say PD's question, yes, also, but will Anderson overtake Shane Warne in the number of Test wickets that he's had? Because I think Anderson is around the, oh dear, I should have got this stat up.
670,
around the
680.
650.
I've got you.
680s maybe, yeah.
682 for James.
682.
Anderson.
Yeah.
And Broad's 570
682.
something.
Yeah, and Shane Warne got 708, I believe. So do you think those two can overcome those milestones? So can Jimmy Anderson become the second highest wicket taker of all time? And can Stuart Broad get into the 600s, which is massive? Because they are now the highest wicket-taking partnership as bowlers ever, aren't they?
Given how much Test cricket England play in a year, if Anderson is going to overtake Shane Warne, he needs to play at least 7 or 8 more Test matches to get those extra 25, 26 wickets, which is, you'd probably say that's about a year's time, given he won't play every game. So my quick maths is telling me that he needs to play for at least another year. He needs to go to next winter, which maybe that will happen.
Oh, I back him.
He'll be playing when
reckon
he's
he can do
50, won't he?
Yeah, he's going to be the Darren Stevens of international cricket.
It's just,
scoring centuries as well.
Yeah, he's got 26 wickets, and like say he takes 5 in a match, which again that's quite a lot, isn't it? But
not for Jimmy Anderson.
That's 5 games. So if he plays the New Zealand Test, I imagine he'll be rested for the Ireland Test. And if he plays all of the Ashes this summer before he retires, I think he has a chance. Yeah. Especially Anderson in English conditions, with Australia not looking too good at the minute as well. I think it's as good a chance as he's ever had. I think Broadie's going to have a couple more years left in him. Like, Broad's got 2-3 more years.
He'll go till 40. He's a young lad.
If Broadie has these spells that he does have, like every now and again, he can just come and just rip through a batting lineup. Will he ever take Anil Kumble? Who can say? But what we do have here, isn't it? It is one of these things. Like, it's a once in a generation type of thing. We're now seeing the 2 most successful seam bowlers ever. Like, and it's just phenomenal to see that, and like, yeah, to see, you know, the next person who's still playing on that list. I think Tim Southey is the next highest wicket taker in Test, and I think he's got
currently
something
playing.
like who bowls seam,
Yeah.
and I think he's got 355. And like, I wouldn't say Southey's got that many more years left in him. Like,
No.
probably about the same as Broad does. So just
Mm.
just looking purely at those numbers, it's just phenomenal to see what the two of them have done.
I think part of their success over the last year is mostly down to Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes.
Yeah.
And we saw the way England declared to give Broad and Anderson and Robinson those favourable conditions after the first innings, but also in the second innings. And we can't let this be underrated. The fact that Ben Stokes promoted Ben Foakes above him when Joe Root got out, so that there was a mixture of attacking and more defensive style batting, because Ben Foakes is more of your traditional Test cricketer, and Ben Foakes was able to play that longer innings. And then as soon as Harry Brook went out, Ben Stokes came in and started teeing off whilst Ben Foakes was still playing that measured innings, in order so that when it got to England eventually being bowled out for 374, they had the favourable conditions again for Broad, Anderson and Robinson. Whereas if Ben Stokes had gone out and he'd lost his wicket cheaply, and then Harry Brook had lost his wicket cheaply, yes, Ben Foakes would be batting with a tail, but he wasn't able to set himself. Whereas batting with Harry Brook, he was able to set himself. He was able to play a longer innings to the point where England were able to last that long until the evening session. So
Yeah.
really good tactical decisions. It's not all everyone's going to play aggressive. There's more than that.
I want to hear your
Do you
thoughts
know
on
why?
this.
Sorry,
Go
I
on.
was going to say
you go first.
The reason why Ben Foakes actually batted ahead of Ben Stokes, while it turned out to be a really good tactical decision, was because Ben Stokes was on the toilet at the time.
Well,
is there a more baseball reason for like a potentially match-winning decision?
on the toilet, Ben. You're gonna have to go
Yeah.
first.
Oh, that's hilarious. All I was going to say was the probably one thing that didn't go phenomenally for England was Stuart Broad as the Nighthawk. We've been waiting to see Broadie as Nighthawk for so many Test matches now, and it's never quite happened. But yeah, his Nighthawking wasn't particularly successful. I want to see Ollie Robinson going as Nighthawk because he can give it a whack.
He's a decent bat as well. He's a decent bat.
But yeah, anyway, that's just what I was saying there. Any final comments on either of these Test matches, boys?
I don't see how England are going to lose to New Zealand in the next game, given how much New Zealand capitulated with their top order in both innings. But I guess it depends on whether they get the best of the conditions, because it was hard for their top order batters to come out against England in those conditions. So it'll be interesting to see how New Zealand respond. And also it'll be interesting to see if Australia can do anything to stop Ashwin and Jadeja. But it's not looking likely.
Australia have got some awkward sort of squad decisions to make now, because obviously Warner is out with concussion and broken arm and all that bad stuff. Pat Cummins, obviously very unfortunately, has had a family incident, so he's had to fly home for that. I believe Josh Hazelwood's been ruled out for the series, so he's just a wasted space. So Cameron Green has been ruled as 100% fit. I believe Mitchell Starc might be fit as well. Okay. So there are some replacements. I think Mitchell Starc could honestly be better. I think Australia should potentially go for their strengths. Starc is a better bat than, some other players that Australia have. And he can also I don't care what pitch you're playing on. If you're bowling left arm over 90, 95 mile an hour Yorkers, you're probably going to take wickets. And I think that's what Australia need. So I reckon get those two in, head opening and pray. And that's about all Australia can do.
What? Okay, so predictions then. We've sort of alluded to it, but predictions for India-Australia third test, James.
Well, I said 4-0 at the start of the series. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to say India are going to win. and I think it's going to take 4 days this time.
Zach?
I think India are going to win again. I don't see them losing more than I see Australia winning. So, yeah, it's going to be India to win this one.
I'm going to be controversial and I'm going to get hate for it in the comments, but I watched the test recently and there's something about the Aussies. I now like them a bit, which isn't great. I know it's terrible, but I'm going to say they showed some signs of positivity in this test. And I hope they can rally and at least make it a decent fight. So I'm going to say they're going to have. There's not going to be a draw. I'm going to say we're going to have one more India win and then one more Australia win. What
Wow.
order?
Okay.
I don't know, but I think Australia need to gather together, and then England, New Zealand. Unless New Zealand massively improve what they did, I'm going to go with England win in that case, just because of how, as Zach said, the top order didn't look very comfortable at all under lights. I don't believe it's a day-night test.
No, it isn't.
I think it's just a standard day test now, so it takes those bits out of the equation. So we'll see how the likes of Conway and Williamson get on. If they score big runs, it could be a different story. What do you think on England, New Zealand, though? Final prediction. I'm going England win.
Yeah, England win, Nighthawk 100.
Oh!
England win. Someone different's going to get man of the match. I'm hoping it's Ollie Pope.
Oh, that'd be nice.
He's doing really well. He's got a couple of nice 40s.
Yeah.
A very selfless 49, giving his wicket away when he could have made 50. So he looks really good, but because of how well the rest of England's team are doing, he's just flying under the radar. So
Yeah, and I want him to do. I mean, Zach Crawley is a bit useless at the moment. So I reckon if Ollie Pope, needs to come in early, I hope he does really well, because then he could potentially fill that opening gap that England, should be having soon when Bairstow comes back and Crawley gets binned off. So yeah. Go on, Popey.
One last thing is the third test between India and Australia has been moved to indoor cricket stadium, and India have played 2 test matches there. They first beat New Zealand in 2016 by 321 runs. Ashwin got 13 wickets and Kohli got a double century. And then the last test match they played there was in 2019 against Bangladesh when they won by over an innings.
Oh, come on, Kohli. Double ton. That's what we want.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Get the cricket nurse in her views or 5,000 subscribers.
Yeah. Nice. Well done. Thank you very much. It's been awesome. We thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, follow us on social media. The link tree's in the description, and we will see you in our next podcast.